Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
And greetings and salutations, everyone. You have finally tuned into Dr. Judy WTF, which stands for What the Freud. I am your host, Walt Lusk, and in studio, as always, is Dr. Judy Rosenberg, the world-renowned author and founder of the Psychological Healing Center, and obviously the title of the show, too. She has a great sense of humor. And we are finishing up our year, and we are doing another narcissistic show. We are going to finally finish, by request, the fourth child of a narcissistic dysfunctional family, the Mascot Child, or sometimes called the Court Jester. And this is a call-in show. And if you want to be a mascot on our show, please call in and get on the couch with Dr. Judy with your emotional ouch. And our number is area code 323-843-2826 here in the United States. And if you're calling from Skype anywhere in the world, it is UBN number 2 radio, UBN radio number 2. And that's for Universal Broadcasting Network, UBN radio number 2. And you can find us on Stitcher, iTunes, of course, iHeartRadio, and we're loving all your stuff and comments on YouTube. So keep them coming.
Yeah, please. And we love call-ins. Walt and I
Absolutely.
love call-ins,
Sure
so
do.
please do. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge all the people who write in and the people who call me and my staff and are part of the mind map therapy. My interns have been really busy treating people from all over the world. It's been quite an honor because we get to see what's happening in all countries around the world, Spain and Ireland and England and Japan and all over, Canada. And so it's been quite an internationally interesting experience for everyone at the Psychological Healing Center. And I just want to address a couple of things. One of the themes that keeps coming up is, should I cut off my narcissistic mother? And so we've been receiving a lot of emails, comments on our YouTubes about that. And my answer to that is that it's a case-by-case basis. Obviously, if your mother or your father is demeaning, devaluing, destroying you to the point where it's injuring you beyond your capacity to deal, then sure, I'm not going to tell you don't cut them off, but it's really difficult for some people to make that final cutoff. So that's why I talk a lot about setting boundaries. That's why I talk a lot about minimize the contact with your dysfunctional family, if indeed they are dysfunctional, and of course honor yourself first, because what narcissism does is it turns the system around to the point. Yeah, it just flips it to the point where you end up honoring your parents before yourself, and they're basically vampiring out your narcissistic supplies, and that's not the way things are supposed to flow. They're supposed to flow from mother, father to child, from father to mother. Father's supposed to nurture the nurturer, then the mother symbolically. It doesn't have to be the mother. It could be the opposite, where the father's the primary caretaker as well. But the system has to flow so that the family system works. And we talked a lot about the lost child in one of the episodes, and we talked about the
golden child, the lost child, and the scapegoat child.
Yes.
And now we're going to talk about the mascot child.
And let me just review a little bit about the three dynamics, because what happens is the family projection process works like this. One of the people is going to be tagged as the golden child in some families, meaning that they're going to be idealized. And some people are going to be tagged as the scapegoat, meaning that they're going to be projected on, and all of the negativity is going to go in that direction.
The troublemaker.
Correct. And some people are going to be the lost child, meaning that they're going to be the ignored ones. And so
The quiet one that flies under the radar.
right. And so depending on how the family functions and who's projecting on who and who's ignored, different people will end up with different symptoms. So today we're going to talk about the lost child. Not the lost
Mascot.
child, the mascot, the
Yes,
clown.
the class clown and the court jester. And
Correct.
the golden child is sometimes called the super kid or the little parent. What's scary, that show was amazing. You're the golden child and the super parent until you aren't. And then you fall really fast and hard.
Right.
I wanted to start with a couple of comments from YouTube, interestingly enough, and it actually dovetails perfectly with your original comment about no contact. This one lady this week writes, I want no contact with my narcissistic mother after she could not and would not apologize for all of her wrongdoings. My psychiatrist instructed me after that to not be around her toxicity. It's very toxic. I thought that was a very good word. It's been 2 years, and I do not miss her at all.
Which says something about how much the mother was actually
Yes.
sharing and giving her.
Yes.
Not only was she not, but on the contrary, she was taking from. She was taking from
Vampiring.
her. And that's why she's not
Narcissistic supply.
missed.
No. And thank you so much for your very informative videos. I feel vindicated. I wish I knew this 30 years ago, yet I am still attracting narcissists.
So look, part of the dynamic of this entire system is that people feel blamed. They feel that it's all their fault. And Walt, you know that we're not sick, we're made sick.
Right.
Some people seem to feel that we're born evil. I don't think that. I
No,
just
we're
don't.
not.
I think
No, we're not.
that if we act if we act evil, my opinion, and it's pretty strong, is that we've been made evil. And yes, there's a point at which you just don't want to tangle with anybody that's gone beyond that line, and it's correct to just not be in their vicinity because they're very toxic. But a baby is not born that way. But if a baby is neglected, abused, demeaned, devalued, destroyed, sexually, verbally, physically abused, and smothered, and all the injuries that we talk about on our show, then what can we expect? That person's going to grow up unhealthy. That person's going to grow up angry. That person is going to not be able to process their anger because there's nobody to process their anger with. So what are they going to do? They're going to project these feelings onto other people. And in the case of the mascot is going to be the one that's trying to diffuse all of this energy.
Yes.
So they're not in a very pretty place themselves.
No, they're not, and they don't end up that way.
Right.
And another one I wanted to talk about real quick in terms of just testimonials was scary things you discussed. All the series about dysfunctional children made me feel so much healthier, and I stopped questioning my sanity. Understanding that the narcissist next to me just made me feel that way with the help of abuse, manipulation, playing with my negative core beliefs. And yes, this is very sad that their shell is really unbreakable, stronger with years and worse to handle by people next to them.
And
love your show.
Well, thank you very, very much for that. We really do appreciate it. We spoke about narcissism, expectations, and death
Yes.
a couple of episodes ago.
That was last week.
And sad to say, Walt, your comment, the quote that you read.
Which one?
Oh, yeah, many. True. But, the one where you talk about don't hold your breath, right?
Oh,
don't,
yes.
Don't hold your breath for an apology.
If you're waiting for an apology on the deathbed of your narcissistic parent, and they finally come to their aha realization moment that they're very apologetic to all this garbage that they threw at you, many instances they double down. But you wanted to elaborate on that, or
yeah, that unfortunately, because of the characteristic of this particular disorder, there's no empathy. So, in other words, they're not connecting the dots and seeing that they're doing any damage. On the contrary, they're seeing that you're doing the damage to them because you're cutting them off and you're not taking care of them. this is something that's unfortunate for the person who suffers from this narcissism, but a lot of narcissists end up dying alone because the children have absolutely nothing to give them.
No, they've been vampired out. All the narcissistic supply that they're giving their parents,
Right.
they don't have any more left to give, and they have
No.
to bow out and do no contact
Right.
just because they have to save some for themselves, and they have to save themselves.
And the human disconnect is that the parent doesn't even know what they did wrong. Like, what did I do to deserve this? I've been around for you.
I've
and
protected you.
I've
I've provided you. And,
I've paid for the ballet lessons that I wanted you to have. I had you join the tennis team that I wanted you to join, okay? And I smacked you around for your own good so that you would straighten out and be a good person. And, they have it in their mind, they have it positioned in their mind that they're really very fine people.
we did a show a little while ago, if you guys want to look it up, called Trophy Kids. It was based upon a movie from HBO.
Yes.
And there was 4 sports. There was tennis, basketball, football, and golf. And oh my gosh, the golf parent just berated this poor daughter of his. Why can't you just hit the ball? It's like, what do you think she's trying to do? And just the culmination of that one was she was in a tournament where the father was not allowed to participate at age 9, and she came in first place.
But see, from a parent's point
Yeah.
of view, from a narcissistic parent's point of view, they're trying to do you a favor by honing you to be a great golfer or a great tennis player. So that's their
and the football
perspective.
kid the football kid even bailed. He just said, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
His dad would go to football camp and was real big with football, and that was his life. And the son just finally said, fine, you can go have your football. I'm done.
So you see the disconnect
Yeah.
there. It's not really about checking in with a kid and saying, hey, what do you want to do? What do you like? Or how do you want to live your life? It's about they're wanting to live your life for you and through you, and that's the damage.
And I had one parent that was lamenting about all the stuff he'd done for his kid. He goes, well, you know what? I bought a volleyball and basketball and football and hockey stuff and badminton and golf, and all this stuff is sitting in a closet in my house. And I said, well, our goal as a parent is to introduce our children to activities and things, and either they love it and it resonates with them, or it doesn't. Now
right.
they know. That's what we're supposed to do as parents.
That's what we're supposed to do.
He didn't
Right,
like
sure.
my response.
So anyway, I wanted to outline this entire process via the mind map, which some of you are familiar with, so that you could see how this whole thing plays out. And so if you would put the mind map up there, Walt, let me know when it's up.
Find it. Up.
Okay.
Here it is. It's up.
Okay, thank you. So
And those of you that are listening to this, you can go to drjudywtf.com.
yes, and it's all explained there, and there's a lot of great information up on my website, including very many blogs. I just wrote a blog on what it means to be the cause as opposed to be the effect. So please do check out the website and read up on blogs on anxiety and being the cause and couples therapy and how our philosophy works with that. So
And it's also linked on our iPhone app,
thank you.
Psychological Healing Center iPhone app.
Yes.
Android's coming.
So just a little bit of an explanation of what this mind map is. This mind map is really an outline of the process of healing. It's a pathway to healing, taking us from our childhood wounds. So the top third of the mind map represents, it's still up there, Walt?
Yes.
Yes, thank
Yes,
you.
it is.
Okay, so the top third of the mind map represents the wounds of our childhood. There are 5 of them that I can identify: physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, neglect, and smothering, spoiling. So those are the 5. And so when we're wounded by our parents, we have massive reactions to these wounds. So these massive reactions then later encode into negative core beliefs like I don't matter, I'm not good enough, I'm not wanted, and so on. And so in the case of a narcissistic mother or father, they're wounded. So because they are wounded, you can see the shadows on panel number 1 where it says wounds. Okay, those shadows are your parents' injuries, and those injuries shadow your health, your light, so to speak. And so as a result of this, it reduces the ability for you to shine and to become what I call the big I, or the self-actualized I. So this is all reduced as a result of the treatment of you in childhood. And because of this, you encode these horrible core beliefs. And as a result of this, what happens is that people break down, and then they defend, and then at the end of that, they double break down and finally break down to a point where they bottom out. So in the case of the mascot, they're living in panel number 5 in the sense that they're using their comedic stance to diffuse the situation, and they're using it as a defense mechanism. And even worse than that, what they're doing is they're getting in the middle of the big clash of panel number 6, and they're kind of throwing their body in the middle going, ha ha, I'm the clown, don't hurt each other. There's a joke coming. There's something funny coming. So they use it as a distraction.
And a diffusement.
As a diffusement so that people don't clash, particularly mom and dad, or, mom and some other siblings. So it's a horrible position to be in because, first of all, it's not funny. Okay, they're acting funny, but it's not funny because they have this huge responsibility on their shoulder.
They do.
Right, and their job is to distract and entertain so that nobody gets hurt. And that's what makes it so sad, is because they're doing it so that they don't get hurt or somebody else doesn't get hurt. So you can see that the mascot will not really develop a true self. The mascot will develop this false self. So they'll look happy, they'll be funny, but inside they're crying. Inside they're suffering. Inside they're that reduced sense of self because they don't have within them the support to be authentic, because they have to thwart their authenticity in favor of being the rescuer, the mascot.
Yes, and it is not all fun and games at all. The mascot's often the youngest, and this child's job is to provide humor to an otherwise very toxic situation, the family situation, is often negative, sarcastic, and at the expense of another. Often everyone in the family allows the child to get away with it, which is very different from the way the others are treated. Mm-hmm. On the inside, they are very angry, insecure. They don't feel like they're good enough. They're terrified, needy, confused, ashamed, left out, helpless, despondent, dependent, guilty, lonely, and insecure. And on the inside, that's the inside. That's the inside. Excuse me. Right. That's the inside.
That's the inside.
On the outside, everything is a joke. Mm-hmm. And they may be funny, carefree, attention-seeking, charming, lighthearted, dramatic, lovable, needy, manipulative, and immature. And someone say they're sometimes the cute one.
And sometimes they can get sarcastic.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
so there's something about humor that can also turn very sarcastic and ugly. And we know this from the darkness of comedians, don't we? That there are a lot of comedians that can go very, very dark in their humor. So it wouldn't be surprised seeing if they were the mascot of the family and then they bore a lot of the psychological pain of the family and then try to convert that into comedy and diffusing that entire negativity of the system. But sarcasm is a defense mechanism, and sarcasm is maybe a humorous way of being angry. Because again, what we're really looking at in terms of the system, the healing system, is that if we can't express, then we end up repressing. Okay? If we can't repress, then we end up projecting on others. So if you don't have that parent to really mirror you and understand you and say, honey, why are you upset? Or what's going on with you? Why are you acting that way? Then you just don't have that mirror in your life. And so then you start going sideways into anxiety, into depression, into defense mechanisms like dark humor or light humor or becoming isolative and becoming that lost child. So you see that these injuries can be the cause for different ways in which the people within the family system are going to react. But ultimately, we're looking at a system gone wrong.
Oh, very wrong.
System gone wrong.
As we've talked about in previous shows, it's multi-generational.
Right.
Mom and dad learn it, the kids learn it, and
Absolutely,
away you go.
absolutely. And not only that, there's another layer. I have to deal with this in my treatment of patients all the time. I have the privilege of treating people from very many different cultures, different religions, different races. And
Right.
so there are also cultural injuries, okay? Because in certain cultures, it's not okay to talk back to your mother. In certain cultures, it's not okay to, in certain cultures, it's okay to leave your children with your parents and take off to another country for years and then send for your children many years later. That creates massive amounts of abandonment. And horrible core beliefs, such as, what do you think the core belief would be, Walt, if somebody's left for another country? Can you only imagine?
I can only imagine. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough.
Correct.
Nobody loves me.
That's right. Nobody loves me.
Nobody loves me.
Okay. And so if you look logically at the situation, is it that that person is not lovable, or is it that that parent, whether wittingly or unwittingly, damaged the children? That parent was the cause. And again, I'm not going to use the word fault because they were injured too, and maybe they don't understand themselves attachment theory and how important it is to be there for the first 3 years of your children's life and more. And so as a result of their parents' poor parenting, they just don't connect it to how their behavior, their decisions are going to impact their very own children. So it becomes a multi-generational mess.
It's quite a stew.
Right.
So, you know what? Are there problems? Dissolve them with a laugh. You're in pain? Joke it away. You want to distract by bring a smile and present a happy face. Mascot is out to make you and himself forget for a few moments that life hurts dreadfully.
Right. And they don't want to feel.
No,
so
they
they'd
do
rather
not want to
laugh than feel.
And then that usually lasts till about age 30, and then after that they are an amazing case for abuse, drugs, and everything that goes with it, because they the family system is kind of gone, right? Mom and dad may have been gone,
so they don't have to do that anymore.
They don't have to do that anymore, but they need another way to not feel.
Right. That's exactly right, because we're back to the hole in the soul, which is what narcissistic parents leave their children with, because they drain them and then they have the hole in the soul, and then what fills the hole in the soul is comedy for a while, and then after a while they'll resort to maybe using drugs to fill that hole in the soul, and then there are many other defense mechanisms. Some people overeat, some people smoke, some people gamble, some people use porn, some people use relationships, the throwaway society, relationship after relationship. Nonetheless, there is that feeling of emptiness, that hollowness within, and no amount of laughs and jokes are going to fill that. And when the curtain is drawn, right, and the show is over, and the person has to face themselves.
They're stuck with themselves.
Right, and there's this gaping hole of emptiness within, and so that's when they turn to these other defense mechanisms.
If I am not entertaining enough, then I won't feel pain. You
mean if I am entertaining?
If I'm entertaining enough,
right.
then they won't feel pain. Excuse me. Provide a diversion for family problems and making everyone feel better with their comedy and their zaniness. For the family, they are immature, but they play up and draw attention away from the scary adults. They take responsibility for the family's emotional well-being and become the social director.
So they're almost comedians in training.
Yeah, they are.
Think about it.
Yeah, they are. And they're the class clown in school and class clown at home, right?
Right.
Can they actually hinder recovery? Well, it's challenging, okay? in school, they're the cut up or they're the class clown. They're very hyperactive because they have very difficulty concentrating. It's mentioned a lot. So, and it's concluded they're not very intelligent because they can't pay attention. But usually it's quite the opposite because they're the ones that are trying to, fix everything and be aware of what's going on. In terms of the family treatment, they are the ones that everybody in the family loves and prefers, might even be seen as fragile and overprotected and shielded from life's problems. And again, when they leave that family shield, again, they don't have trouble dealing with life. So they're, again, a candidate for more abuse and stuff. They spend very little time at home. Again, why would they want to be in this scary situation? They have lots of friends, but are they really friends? And they have a short attention span and inappropriate emotional responses. But they try to go with the flow, right? Disown responsibility, attract and constant attention. They're very exaggerated and dynamic and dramatic. And they can be disruptive and get in trouble. So they're quite a handful.
And you mentioned something about they're the favorite of the party, so to speak.
Life of the party.
So in essence, what they're doing is they're doing rather than being. So that's why it's joke after joke after joke, because there's that empty core underneath it all. And they believe that they're not loved for who they are. They're loved for what they're doing. In this case, it's the comedy.
Here's the deficit. They're fearful of looking inside and being honest about feelings and behavior, so they will be out of touch with unpleasant emotions and their spirituality.
But really, if you look at the system, there's nobody for them to discuss their feelings with. So what are they supposed to do with their feelings? So that's why their feelings are unexpressed, because there's really nobody to express them to. So it makes sense that they're going to hide behind this mask of comedy, or that the lost child will shut down and move away. So you can see that when we're not being mirrored, and this is a very, very important concept, the concept of mirroring, and let me explain what that is that mother and baby start the relationship out by gazing into each other's eyes. And when the mother intuits the child, and when the mother is able to respond to the baby's smiles or the baby's cries or the baby's needs, it sets up an attunement between the mother and the baby. And when this attunement is not happening, it sets up a disconnect between the mother and the baby. And therefore, the baby has to turn inward because he or she is no longer able to be mirrored and to look into mother's eyes, because mother might not be there physically, or mother might be depressed, or mother might be strung out on drugs, or mother might be arguing with father, or mother might be attending to her other 8 children. So that disconnect is really why we deal with healing human disconnect, because wherever we're disconnected from, we experience pain, and wherever we're disconnected from, we have to turn inward or project our pain outward onto other people, or distract the pain, as in the case of the mascot, and laugh it off.
This is interesting. Their beliefs. You're going to like this one. This is a from to example.
Okay.
So the from is, I must never point out any problems. If I make people laugh, everybody will feel better. I only have value as an entertainer.
But see, in a sense, they're right. They can't point out the problems, because the problems are not going to be received. Nope. If they say to their parent, you're being really, really selfish, what do you think the parent's going to say? They're going to smack them up the side of their head. So again, there's a lack of empathy, there's a lack of mirroring, there's a lack of receiving, because when we communicate, there's a process that I refer to as we ingest the information, we digest the information, and then we manifest. Okay, so it's a ingest, digest, manifest kind of thing. And so with 2 people, if the son or the daughter is trying to communicate, then there's a hope that the mother is going to ingest the information and digest the information, and then manifest some sort of response that's going to be empathic. But that system is not operational in the case of dysfunctional narcissistic families. There's no ingest because the mother's already defending. I don't want to hear this. I'm busy. Or I don't want to hear it because it has nothing to do with me, me.
It doesn't benefit
right?
me.
It doesn't benefit me.
Yeah, what's in it for me?
Why even take it in?
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
So we have that belief. The from to the to is I have value for who I am without being amusing. To I can be confronted and loved even when I'm not on, and I'm not responsible for others' happiness.
So that just, the core belief is that I am responsible for others' people's happiness, and I only am loved when I'm on. Right.
So they're very terrified, lonely, embarrassed, sad, anxious. Anxiety was mentioned a lot. Deeply insecure, inadequate, unimportant, and they show shame with depression and, of course, addiction. They rarely feel loved for themselves, but rather playing this role and keeping the family entertained. Okay, they're not allowed to have sadness or others painful emotions.
And you know what's interesting?
So all that jazz is bottled up, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, it's all bottled up. And what's surprising is that people who go take it to the nth level and at the end of the game off themselves through drug overdose or suicide, people will say, "Oh my God, I thought he was so funny and he was so
funny
happy.
and so happy.
Like I don't get it. He was the most entertaining person, and the most entertaining person has now blown his or her head off or is hanging by a rope."
How many
it's
entertainers?
Very confusing for people.
How many entertainers have we talked about that have committed suicide?
Yes,
okay,
yes,
we could. I mean, we had a show on that.
Yeah,
right.
We did.
It's voluminous.
Yes.
Right. The defense against intense inner anxiety and tension, their ability to cope with that stress can lead them to believe they are going crazy, and as a result of that, boom, they check out.
You know, it was this movie called I'm Dancing as Fast as I Can.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was with Jill Clayburgh, if I'm not mistaken. And it was about a woman who was addicted. I think she was addicted to pills. Anyway, the title attracts me because in the context of this, the person's just kind of dancing as fast as she and he or he can, dancing to distract. So there's this sort of a real mania sometimes built up around this. It's not just ha-ha gentle comedy. It's just like, okay, now the attacks are coming, so I've got to defend. So it builds up this kind of a manic speed at some time in the with some people in the interactions.
Well, it's not all bad because on the other side, the adult mascots are known for their kind heart, their generosity, and the ability to listen to others. Mm-hmm. After living their lives focused on others, they have a hard time recognizing their own needs or getting their own needs met. Mm-hmm. They give love, but they don't know how to accept it.
Which is a little bit like the people pleaser, right? They're giving, and what they have to be careful about is that they don't bleed out. Mm-hmm. And the reason they're unable to accept it is because there was nobody in the family dynamic to really model empathy. So then they stop believing that it's possible for them to even experience that. So therefore, why not just defend this way?
They become involved in the helping professions, confusing patients for friends. I thought that was a really interesting analogy. Or they get involved in an abused person, hoping to try and save them because they know they've been abused and probably have abuse themselves.
Back to the people pleasing.
Yep. Yep.
Right. So if you're involved with somebody who's ha-ha funny and they turn a little sarcastic on you, you can bet that there's a lot of anger and insecurity behind that. And so you might want to consider that what you're dealing with is not really a happy person, not a self-confident person, but a person who, is in pain.
Yes, very much so. Mm-hmm. And what I'd like to do with the time left is, because I mentioned this last week and I've talked to a few folks about this, is there are 7 things that narcissists themselves are very afraid of, and we talked about one last week, and that, of course, is death.
Death.
And that's the last one, so I'm giving you a preview of coming attractions.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, you're going to be working backwards, so it's not coming attraction. It's just,
It's inevitable.
Right.
Okay. Yes, I say 3 things are inevitable: death, taxes, and plumbing. So first they're
And
afraid.
then being taxed on death.
And
How's that?
Yes. Yeah, there you go. The good old estate tax. First is they're afraid of being abandoned and rejected. Okay, they can't stand being abandoned or rejected. That's why they fly into rages and punish and threaten if you threaten to leave them, and love bomb you if you do manage to get away. To reject a narcissist means you are rejecting the false self they have so carefully constructed to impress you.
And they believe that it's their true self. And
Yes,
so,
indeed.
So actually part of the treatment of this disorder, and I'm really feeling honored because I'm getting a lot of people who are calling me and they're saying, I think I might be a narcissist. And this is really unusual that people would
Yes.
be self-proclaimed narcissists. And so part of the treatment is to really deconstruct the family system, and so that they begin to understand that they're not really narcissists, like I'm born a cat, I'm born a dog, I'm born a narcissist. It's not like that. It's that they're needing to use their narcissistic defenses in order to quell the pain of not being mirrored, of not being seen, of not being heard, of not being nourished emotionally. And so it's quite something when a person can say, you know, I think I'm suffering from this. I think I've got some of these aspects. Sometimes the wife will call and say, oh, I think my husband's a narcissist. Or husband will call and say, oh, I think my wife is. And then they'll say, you know, please call the clinic because, you know, now that I know too much, you've got to work on this, or I don't see that this is going to end well for us. So, yeah. So Freud said there's no help for the narcissist, and many therapists feel that it's the hardest disorder to quote deal with. I've personally
the stories you've told me and the success stories you've had are incredible. And very real.
It's very heartening.
Yes.
I have an example of a woman who was so beaten down by her father, and recently just sent me an email with a picture of her and her very destructive father, who also almost killed her mother. And in this case, she's sending me a picture of she and her father smiling and kind of reenacting choking each other or something like that. So they made a comedy out of a very, very serious event back in the day. And what's so interesting is that this person, through therapy, through a lot of the truth dialogues that she and I had in the therapy, she was able to work this through, and eventually she was able to talk to her father, and over many, many, many months work it through. So, you know, this is on the positive end. You know, some people never work it through. Some people have to do a complete emotional cutoff. And there are cases where this is worked through. So it's not black and white. It's not all or none. It's case by case, and also it depends on the motivation of the people involved.
And that's why we spend a lot of time on narcissism, is because we found that there's a lot of pain, and a lot of people are resonating with this.
Right.
But there's hope at the other end through Dr. Judy and her family of therapists at the Psychological Healing Center, that you don't have to stay this way. There really is hope. And my definition of hope is help other people escape. So you can escape, but you need help. You can't do it alone.
Yes.
So, lastly, under abandonment and rejection, they're forced to confront their own emptiness, and nothing scares them more than that. So they'll fight you tooth and nail on that if you threaten to abandon them, and that's why it's really tough to get away from them.
And you know, it's embarrassing to say I'm a narcissist, or I'm an anything, and so. Some of the therapy that we do is teletherapy, and you don't really have to necessarily reveal yourself. You know, if you want to learn the system and call yourself John Doe or Mary Jones, that's perfectly fine.
Absolutely, it is.
Right.
It is. Even here on the show, it's a call-in show.
Right.
So,
if you want to learn anonymously, you can read the book, obviously.
Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect, available on Amazon.
and you can learn for free by listening to all of the YouTube episodes that are up, and it's just a lot of material out there on this disorder, and
we've worked
keep
really,
learning.
really hard to get all this information out.
Yeah.
The second thing, which I think is interesting, is narcissists absolutely hate being made fun of. They have no sense of humor. And they have non-zero zip nada. They have no empathy and they have no sense of humor. They're not a real person, but an object. So to you, you're not a real person, but an object. And they're incapable of laughing at themselves because that means they have to look at themselves.
Well, that's right. And they have to have the knowledge to self-reflect. So I make a big deal out of self-reflection and self-correction because the opposite of self-reflection and self-correction is blaming, shaming, judging, and also feeling guilt. Okay, guilt is not a cure for stopping the behavior. What is a better way is to look at yourself, take inventory of yourself, and then be honest enough in front of somebody that cares, or honest enough with yourself to say, look, this is not working for me. This is not working for other people. This is not going to serve me or my significant others or the community well. And then you have to start dismantling the behaviors, and you have to start dismantling the wounds of childhood and how they encode, and the defense mechanisms and how they falsely support a horrible system that eventually breaks you down.
Third is they hate to be disrespected. No one likes to be treated with disdain and disrespect. It's down, and they're downright phobic of it.
Yeah.
Again, you have to keep propping them up. It's your job to puff up and inflate them, because disrespecting a narcissist is like popping a hole in their balloon self, and they feel like they are going to die.
The false self.
Their very false self. That's every defense mechanism they've got. They'll use everything. They have to their arsenal: gaslighting, which we've talked about, rages, silent treatment, lying, projection, denial,
humor,
fabricating.
Well, that's the defense against the narcissist.
False affection, just to keep you from inflating their balloon self, so they don't have to acknowledge that the horror of recognizing that they've lost the real one and you've disrespected them. It's just such a narcissistic injury. It's just too much for them.
Yeah. Being
Being ignored. Right? They can abandon you, but you can't ignore and abandon them, because then they have no supply. You aren't giving them what they need. They die a very slow death. They're no longer confident that they exist without your attention.
And the covert narcissists are really good because they claim independence, but yet they're not. They're not independent. They're abandoning you, and they already have their next victim in place before they cut the string. So they're like a monkey jumping from one vine to the next vine, and all the while thinking that they're very, very self-sufficient, very independent people.
Yes, they are.
But they're really not.
No, they're extremely insecure. Next is exposure. If you call a narcissist on their abusive behavior, they're usually going to become, again, very angry. And they won't be rage. They might give you the silent treatment again and gaslight you. They don't like being held accountable for the things they do to others, because that means they have to admit they're less than perfect.
Correct.
They're all too aware of their imperfections, but only on a subconscious level. You can't just explain it, throw it out at them. Again, they're not happy campers.
And this can play out not only in intimate relationships. This can play out in friendships. This can play out at work, in the community. So these dynamics are not only between husband, wife, lovers, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, but these dynamics become like big concentric circles, and they show up at places of employment and in other dynamics in society. So it's like that blueprint keeps generating the same kinds of behaviors and patterns.
I mean, you expose them to their hellish world of smoke and mirrors when you're no longer sure what's real and what isn't. They set up an elaborate lie and a massive defense mechanism against being exposed as imperfected and flawed. And they blame so they do not feel shame. Right?
Well, the best defense is offense,
It's a
right?
good
And
offense.
that's why they're so offensive.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. Yes. The best defense is being offensive.
Offensive, right? And then the other person can start planning how they're going to defend themselves, and then they won't notice how offensive the narcissist is because they're busy.
No, absolutely.
Busy defending.
Next one, we've talked about this last week. The loss of trappings of youth and success, right? They grow even more abusive as they age because it means loss. They've lost their looks, their career, their health, maybe a spouse, and they value the value that were admired and respected for is now gone. And again, it exposes them to the smoke and mirrors that they've gotten. And then lastly, of course, is death, right? That they live in the mortal terror of death because at that point, it's a complete annihilation of their ego and they've got nothing left. And
then there's the fear.
The person who wrote this article says, personally, I think some of them also fear hell.
Hell? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think they also fear dying alone because
Yes.
intuitively they know that they've been so obnoxious all their life that nobody's really going to want to be at their deathbed. Nobody's going to change their diaper. Nobody's going to change their bedpan, whatever, except paid employees or nurses from the hospital or, paid employees.
And as we talked about last week,
Right.
some companies won't even deal with them because they're so abusive. Yeah, so
So they don't get better
and so
as
they're
they
stuck
age.
with the family because nobody else will take care of them. So the
Yeah.
family has to come back in and save them.
And some don't want to because they've already cut them off. It's too late.
Yeah, it's
Right.
really
Too late
tough.
to apologize, as we said last time. Too late.
So that's our show this go-round in terms of dealing with narcissism, narcissists, and the Mascot Child. And now we're going to do our segment, Shrink That Tune. And this one's by request from Dr. Judy. It's entitled The Tears of a Clown, the infamous song by, of course, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. So I'm going to read the lyrics, and then Dr. Judy is going to interpret it from a mind map psychological perspective. Now there's a smile on my face. It's only there trying to fool the public. But when it comes down to fooling you, now, honey, that's quite a different subject. But don't let my glad expression give you the wrong impression. Really, I'm sad. Oh, I'm sadder than sad. You're gone, and I'm hurtin' so bad. Like a clown, I pretend to be glad.
Well, this is so appropriate for the
Yes, it is.
mascot,
Yes, it
Walt, when you
is.
asked me what tune should we
Man, you
sing.
popped right up with
yeah,
that one.
this is like, of course, it's got to be Tears of a Clown. So this fake smile on my face and trying to fool the public and, not being able to fool the person that they love because there's this deep sadness inside. And they're really hurting because in this case, like a clown, they're pretending to be glad, but this person's hurting because someone has left them. So they're not feeling too funny.
No, they're not. Now, there's some things, sad things known to man, but ain't too much sadder than the tears of a clown when there's no one around.
So that's the true self. When there's no one around, that's when they feel their feelings. But when there's someone around, they've got to pretend.
Now, if I appear to be carefree, it's only to camouflage my sadness. In order to shield my pride, I've tried to cover this hurt with show of gladness. But don't let my show convince you that I've been happy since you decided to go. Oh, I need you so. I'm hurt and I want you to know. But for others, I put on a show.
And here it is again. They're pretending to be carefree. They're camouflaging. They put on a show. But, don't be fooled. Underneath it all are the tears of the clown.
Man, this song sounds so different when you just read the lyrics.
Right? It's amazing.
Oh
I've
gosh.
never put it in this context.
Wow.
I've been listening to it for years.
Well, yeah.
Like, wow. All right. So appropriate for the subject. Okay.
But there's some sad things known to man, but there ain't too sadder than the tears of a clown when there's no one around. And we're back to the chorus again.
It's almost like they were the mascot. Whoever wrote
Yes.
this song
Yeah.
must have been the family mascot.
Yep.
Just fits so well with what we've been talking about.
But just like Picolosi did, I tried to keep my sadness hid, smiling in the public eye, but in my only room I cry, the tears of a clown when no one's around. But now there's a smile on my face. Don't let my glad expression give you the wrong impression. Don't let the smile I wear make you think that I don't care. Really, I'm sad and I'm hurting so bad.
Well, these words are so profound, and I'm sure glad that this is the song that represents the mascot, because it really does. And it's just a beautiful song, and this is the first time I've really read the words and understood the meaning behind them. Beautiful.
So that's our Shrink That Tune. This is, of course, Tears of the Clown by Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. And that's our show for Dr. Judy WTF for What the Freud. We really appreciate all of your comments on YouTube. You can find us, of course, on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, iTunes, and right here at UBN Radio, where we broadcast every Thursday at 8 p.m. in the evening. Some asked that one. Pacific time here in Los Angeles at the Sunset Gower Studios in the heart of Hollywood. And
I just wanted to say that my staff are very busy, and they're offering 10, 15-minute consultations. So please take advantage of that. And if you're interested in the mind map therapy, we have an amazing staff of people. You can look them up on the website. Most of their pictures are up there. And I'm just really proud of my staff. They're doing incredible work. So I just, I really want to acknowledge everybody on the staff of these psychological healing centers.
And they really have a sliding scale, and they rarely, if ever, turn anybody away, no matter who, your situation, or where you're from. So don't sit there and say, hey, I can't afford it. Frankly, you can't afford not to. And that's Dr. Judy, the founder of the Psychological Healing Center. And I'm your host, Walt Lusk, with Dr. Judy WTF, What the Freud. And here's our song. Until next time, God bless everybody.